Welcome! In this video we're going to be taking a quick look at Mana, a epic grade support class Elune. Looking at his base stats at 6 star, level 60, he has decent HP at 28.5k with an attack at 4.4 and his PDEF and MDEF at 2.7 apiece, making him a little bit squishy, but he is epic, so it's expected. His attack speed at 110 does put him a little bit on the quicker side of things, so that makes him a little bit easier to go quickly, which will work well because of his skill kit. When he is transcended up to the max at +5, his HP does go up to a pretty decent 42.7k with a 6.7k attack and 4.1k PDEF and MDEF, which isn't too bad for him, as these stats can be increased through gear and through Dimension Slate. Let's move on to his skills. His first skill just is a normal attack skill. It's one enemy, which means you can attack anybody on any enemy. It is not a frontline only. This is a magic damaging skill. This skill does have a unique effect though. For every turn that the enemy has taken, the skill will do an additional 5% damage, capping at 50%, meaning that after they take 10 turns, anything after that, the damage will still stay at that 50% increase. This means that this skill, once it's maxed up to level 6, then it's decent damage at 860, 130% of attack. It can do quite a bit of damage, even though he is a support Elune. It can still deal good damage just because of this added benefit of it doing additional damage because of the number of turns that they've taken. Looking at his special skill, this one is a very unique skill, but also very good and has some good usages. Now, this skill, as a special skill, it does take 4 souls, but it does apply a soul effect to an ally. What this soul effect does, it is whenever the ally gets a turn, they will take that turn that they normally would get, but then they will immediately gain an additional turn, meaning they don't need gear or any special effect to give them an additional turn. It just automatically gives them an additional turn. During this additional turn, they get an enhanced buff. This enhanced buff increases their attack. At level 1, it's 7.5%, but once the skill gets up to level 6, it goes up to a very nice 20% increase in attack, meaning that this skill guarantees whatever Elune you put it on, they take 2 turns on their next turn that they take. This can be very beneficial if you're wanting to take something out quickly, or you're just wanting that Elune to cycle some turns to get something off of cooldown. You can use this as a way to manipulate the cooldowns by giving that Elune 2 turns to reduce its cooldowns to allow it to take additional turns. The thing to note about this special skill though is that this skill, unlike other special skills, it is like an ultimate skill in that it does have a cooldown. It is not mentioned on the skill, but this skill does have a cooldown the same as the ultimate skill. So once you use it, you'll need 2 additional turns before it's off cooldown to use it again. So you cannot just spam this skill on something to allow, say, your DPS to take 2 turns every time it moves. You can't do that because this skill does have a cooldown, which is very balanced, and it's a good thing that it does. Otherwise, this skill would be abused, and you can just always give it to your best DPS type Elune and just let that Elune take 2 turns every time it moves. Instead, you kind of need to plan it out for what you want to do. It works well with something, say, like a Congrim or even a Reaper, where you're trying to get those instant kill skills off cooldowns, or in the case of Congrim, where you're trying to apply that initial mark of death so that you can cycle through to get that up so you can use his instant kill to start killing things. So it is useful in that respect because it gives them 2 turns, which reduces the amount of time that it takes to get that on or to get their instant kill skills back off of cooldown. Looking at it as ultimate skill, this is a very nice buff skill. It's one of the only other things that mana does. He doesn't do too much, but this is one of the other things that he does. This is a speed buff. At level 1 it's 15% for one turn, but when you get it maxed out, it is a 25% increase in speed to your entire team for 2 turns. This allows your team to move very quickly, and with this speed buff you can apply this, and if you bring something like, for example, an Alvida with you, then you can really slow down the enemy team with her slow AoE, and then you have a nice increased attack speed, which will allow you to lap the enemy team frequently. This is a 2-turn buff, meaning that you can use it pretty much every time it's off cooldown, and it's only 4 souls, so it's not too expensive to use. So this is pretty decent, and it is quite effective at giving your team a lot of speed. Now let's look at his passives. His passives, this increases his attack by 5% for each attack speed up effect that allies have, which means once you use his ultimate skill and your entire team is alive, that's going to be 5 allies that have the attack speed up effect. So he's going to gain 5% for each of those allies that have that, so 20% for the other 4 allies. I haven't done the actual testing to check to see, but I'll have to try that and see if it's 25% or 20% if it includes him in that. But in either case, 20 to 25% increased attack means that he does hit a little bit harder with his skill 1. Since his special and ultimate skills don't do any damage at all, and the normal skill does increase with the number of turns the ally takes, this can let him hit quite hard with his normal skill. His second passive, this one, what this does is it steals an attack speed buff from an enemy whenever he gets a turn, meaning that if the enemy team uses anything that increases their attack speed, whenever mana gets a turn, he will steal it from a random enemy, so they no longer have that buff and he has it instead. His third passive now, this one is quite nice and is useful against fighting an Alvida that reduces speed. What this one does is when an ally or himself is afflicted with a weaken effect that reduces attack speed, instead that attack speed is changed into a buff that increases attack speed. So if the attack speed would have been a 20% decrease in speed, it now is a buff that increases their attack speed by 20%. So if you're fighting an Alvida that's on, say, an enemy defense in air battles or alliance battles, or even in the new underground arena, and they have an Alvida on defense, you'll know that it's going to be applying its attack speed early on because it's the special skill. When it does this, if you have a mana on your team, instead of your team getting slowed down, you will now have an increase in speed to your team, which will give you a nice little attack speed buff to allow you to move faster. And that attack speed buff that you get on your team will also apply to his passive 1, which again increases his attack. Looking in at the skill gems for him, his first skill is a damage skill and can do significant damage. This skill has a 5% chance to seal the target for 1 turn if you go with the blue-blue-violet set, which is not bad for him, as the blue-blue-violet, it still allows it to have good damage with the 2 blue gems for magic damage and the violet for the speed, just to give him a little bit faster of turn cycling, but also the 5% chance to seal the target is low, but it is still pretty decent, as it does add some extra utility to the skill if it does proc. So there is that RNG factor, but it can be beneficial. But if you're wanting it just to be pure damage, then of course you can just go with all blues. On his other skill, this one, the yellow on this affect the attack buff that they get on the additional turn that they get. So with this one, you can go yellow, yellow, violet, again increasing his speed after using it, or you can go with full yellow just to increase that attack buff even more on that additional turn. If you do go with the yellow violet, then it's a 5% chance of increasing target's evasion rate by 5% for 2 turns. This is very low, and it's just an evasion rate, so most Elunes are not going to get too much benefit out of a 5% increase on a 5% chance, so just going ahead and giving them extra attack might not be a bad option. On his last skill, his ultimate skill, the skill gem effect is a 5% chance of healing the target's HP by 5%. This again, very low chance, 5% HP is not that much. This would be a lot better if this was an AoE 5% guaranteed heal. This would make it much better and make mana much more useful if that was on here. But as it's not, and it's only a 5% chance of it healing, even though this is an AoE, it still has a very low chance to actually trigger. So instead, going with a full yellow gives a bonus speed increase to the speed buff that he puts, making your Elunes be even faster and having a higher speed increase. Things to focus on in the Dimension Slate for mana, as you can make him as tanky as you want, so go with PDEF, go with MDEF, go with HP as much as you want, but considering his skill 1 does have the ability to do quite significant damage because of his passive and the way that it works with an increased damage based on enemy turns, you can actually put mana on a damage type build and use him to do damage as well as going quickly. His damage is quite nice when doing this, so putting him on going for things like crit rate or attack for mana and the Dimension Slate are on the gear is good. Things to notice too whenever you're doing mana, gear that you can go with, anything that gives him good tanky stats or anything that gives him attack is something that can be beneficial. Things that give him additional turns like a Great Spirit set could be beneficial to him also if you want to use him as a damage dealer, because the Great Spirit set, the full set, does have a chance of giving him additional turns, which means he can cycle into his special skill more often. But it also allows him to take those turns quicker by giving him that speed increase, and it gives him a attack on his primary and offhand weapon slots, allowing him to do more damage. This way mana can be kind of a surprise element into a battle, where that you can use him to do damage as well as providing speed and additional turns to your team. Overall, Mana doesn't have too much of a useful kit, but his kit is unique and it can synergize and work well with the rest of your team. He is a support Elune, so his primary role is not damage, but because of his base stats being pretty decent in terms of attack, he can be built as an attack or additional attack or supporting attack type role and do some pretty good magic damage. With the speed increase that he gives your team, he does let your team have that advantage of moving more often than the enemy team, as well as providing a mechanic to stop the enemy team from debuffing your speed. He also has the ability to help your team cycle back into skills with cooldowns by granting them a forced additional turn with his special skill. He can use it on himself too if you want to use it on him just to do more damage. But he is overall doesn't do too much else. His passives are mainly focused on speed, stealing speed buffs, increasing speed, or doing additional damage because of speed. So he is very much a speed type thing, and if you're going for a team where you're wanting speed and you're wanting lots of speed, then he is an Elune that you're going to be wanting on your team. Overall, he is pretty niche about where you would use him. He doesn't have like a wide array of usage places so much as like Wei Wei, where she just provides constant attack, increased attack or increased defenses. Mana is more geared towards speed and speed alone, but he also does some damage. So he can be used as a supportive role there. He could see some good usage in the underground arena, where a lot of people might underestimate him, especially if you build him on an attack type build. people might be surprised that they're getting attacked and damaged by something that they've probably never seen before, an Elune that might surprise them, because your team would be moving pretty often with the speed buff, as well as getting additional turns from his special skill to whichever loon that he gives it to on your team, but also him just doing massive damage and stuff too. After so many turns are taken by the enemy team, he'll start doing lots of damage, so it might catch people off guard on a defense in the underground arena. Considering he wouldn't take too much merit as a epic, and he doesn't take too much merit anyway, he could be useful there just to catch people off guard whenever they're attacking your defense. That's going to be it for this one. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll answer them or get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you.